and welcome to the Rick House. My name is Cyrus Farmer, and you are watching and listening to the Stomp the Tee podcast. And folks, we have a big show for you tonight. We're going to talk about our trip to Augusta this past weekend to watch the third and fourth rounds of the Masters. We'll also talk about some of the ramifications of the win that occurred by Rory McIlroy. What does it mean for golf? What does it mean for Rory? What does it mean for the other golfers he competes against? And of course, as always, we will be getting into everyone's favorite segment. What are you drinking tonight? But first, there are a couple things that I do have to get off the decks right away. Yes, you are absolutely correct. We are in day 40 of the Wolf Watch. Unbelievably, and yet somehow very believably. Folks, obviously we're in day 40, once again, with no end in sight. Why is there no end in sight? I'm going to give you one reason. My wife is going to be out of town next week, and I know for a fact, even though this is a guess, I'm guessing she's not going to open the Wolf Gourmet Convection Oven that I bought her for her birthday, which was February 21st, by the way. I'm guessing she's not going to open it before she goes out of town. Now, all that being said, there is a chance. Remember, I set the number at Memorial Day, folks, which is still a good 5-6 weeks away. I do think we're going to touch Memorial Day, but we may get a chance to hit the under. I actually formally picked the over, by the way. So maybe when my wife returns back into town, we do some spring cleaning before and during her arrival back home. And maybe that kind of promotes, hey, let's get this thing out of the box and see what it can do. Kind of an attitude, but only time will tell. And, of course, I will tell you when it happens. All right, so there's the Wolf Watch. Folks, I have to let you know, I finally got my man Skip out on the golf course. And let me tell you a little bit about our route. Skip and I went to the Masters this past weekend. So we played a course called Forest Hills, which is kind of like the home course, the practice course for the Augusta State golf team. Augusta State has a very good golf team, nationally ranked with all the best programs in the country. And this is the course that they play at and practice at, and it's kind of their home course. It's right there in Augusta. Folks, I have to tell you, I had some very good impressions of Forest Hill as a course. Now, you have to understand, during Masters Week, any golf course you want to play in and around the Augusta area, whether it's as close as Augusta or as far away as Atlanta or South Carolina, they're going to charge a premium in their greens fees for that week because so many people are either going to come to town looking to play some golf and then go to the actual Masters, or you'll have people who want to play golf during Masters Week even though they're not going to the actual tournament. So it's a chance for these guys to make a little extra money, which is fine. Their upcharge was not nearly as much as some other courses that we have played in the past and we're looking to play this time. So we ended up going with Forest Hills, which was great. Interesting course, fun course, just enough water to get your attention, but not to dominate the landscape. As you all know, I have dubbed this golf season $6 summer because I am trying to do a little kitchen remodeling, maybe even add some counter space so that we can actually get this damn Wolf toaster oven on the counter and out of the box. But one of the ways I want to do that is by winning $6 off my buddy Skip. I want to do this $6 at a time. So I have to get him on the course early and often. And this was our first round of the season. Now, most of you know that Skip and I play for $6 a round. That's $2 on the front, $2 on the back, and $2 for the overall score. Of course, he's a better golfer than I am. Everyone knows here that I am a lousy golfer. So he gives me strokes. Strokes that I actually have earned, by the way. This is a USGA Gen handicap number. So we're not making up numbers out of thin air. Long story short, we get on the course, we play. Unfortunately, I did not win $6. But I did win 4. I got $4 off of my man Skip. Folks, it's great. Look, you have to understand something about us. One of the things that I can deal with is the lack of regard, the insults, the literally being taken for granted by my man Skip, one of my best friends in the world, by the way. I can put up with all of that as long as I see him open his wallet after a round of golf. Folks, it's the best feeling in the world. It's awesome because he can't stand losing money, even $6. So I can't tell you what a big kick I get out of it. But I'm telling you now, I get a huge kick out of it. It is awesome. So 1 round in, 1 successful round for the good guy. All right, let me tell you a little bit about the trip. So we got in on Friday. We played that round of golf. And then from there, we went to the house that we were staying in and got some dinner, hung out with some other wonderful swells, some great people we met there, and got ready for Saturday, which was going to be our first day at Augusta National. Again, we have tickets for Saturday and Sunday. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the Saturday round. What happened? So I got to Augusta National around, when was it? I got there around 7:15. I hit the merchandise tent around 8 a.m. I got to tell you, the merchandise tent is its own thing. Again, it's not a tent. I call it the merchandise tent, but I think it's called a golf shop, technically. And it's a hardscape building, obviously. It's Augusta National. Anyway, so I looked for, but did not find any of the famous Masters gnomes. But they did have some of the mini gnomes available, and of course, I picked one up. Now, the gnomes have been a huge phenomenon over the last, I think they're only about 10 years old. They've become this huge phenomenon because for whatever reason, like maybe the Funk Pops or the bobblehead, these Masters gnomes get resold at a tremendous markup on sites like eBay. I mean, depending on the year of the gnome that you have, a full-size gnome costs about $50. But it will resell on eBay for as much as $700, $800. I mean, it's really very strange. But people like them. And more importantly, people like to collect them. So I got the mini gnome, not the full-size gnome. And of course, I took care of all the friends and family, It was really great to get that list out of the way. Now, one thing to remember, folks, if you go to the Masters and you're shopping for merchandise, write your list down on paper. Stick it in your pocket and go to the actual merchandise tent. Because you are not going to have the ability to pull up your list on your phone because phones aren't allowed at Augusta National. I can't tell you how many people we ran into, both on the course and at the merchandise tent, who said, "Oh my gosh, I had this whole list of everything I was going to buy for my friends and family, but I forgot to write it down. It's all on my phone, and my phone's not on the premises." So, little pro tip there. What did I do Saturday after getting out of the merchandise tent? One thing to remember, folks, the merchandise tent, one thing Augusta National does a great job at, they do a great job at a lot of things. But one of the best things they do is that after you purchase these multiple bags of items and souvenirs and hats and polos and umbrellas and chairs. Chairs are a hugely popular item. You have the ability, if you choose, to go next door and ship that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 worth of merchandise that you bought through FedEx back to your home or your office or wherever you want to send it. It is awesome. Now, you see so many people walking around with merchandise bags, and they are literally going to pack things back in their luggage and bring it home with them. But I got to be honest. I think I did that same thing my first time there. But I do have to be honest. The second and third time, this was the third time, I just shipped everything back. It's so much easier. I mean, it costs you $75, $100, depending on what you buy and how much space it takes up. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, you just spent $1,500 in the merchandise tent. Why not go for the extra $120 to ship it back? You get it in like 2-3 business days. It's awesome, and you can walk around hands free. That allows you more ability to collect Masters beer and soft drink cups by the stack if you choose. Well, so after we finished, we being me, after I finished up the merchandise tent, I did something I've been trying to do for the last 2 trips, and I finally did it this trip. What was that? Folks, I finally walked the entire course of Augusta National Golf Club. It was awesome. I started at 1, and for every single hole, I got behind the ropes, behind the tee box, so I could look down the fairway at every single hole. I think the only holes I wasn't able to get behind the tee box to look down was probably 13, obviously. And there were a couple others. Surprisingly, I think there were only 3 holes that I actually couldn't look down the fairway, actually, and then take myself down the fairway and look up at the green. I think there were only 2 or 3 holes, 13 being one of them. But I got to tell you, folks, it was awesome. I think it was about a 2-hour walk, 2.5. Obviously, you're not playing the course. But one of the things that I tried to do is imagine how I would attack each hole, lousy golfer that I am, if I were playing Augusta National. It was a wonderful exercise. Now, I will tell you this. We have no idea how many times it would take any of us to putt on those greens. So you're not trying to envision a score, right? You're just trying to imagine what it would take to get off the tee, to get onto the green. And then you take as many putts as you need to at that point to go to the next hole. But I will say this, as interesting as the exercise was, and it was fascinating, the one thing that was actually very apparent to me after the fact was every single shot I envisioned myself taking to get from tee to green was essentially my best shot on any given swing. So I'm like, I get off the tee in 1, and I hit it about 225, 230, but it rolls down the hill. So I land, I have about 65 yards into the third hole, whatever it was. But obviously, I wouldn't necessarily get off the tee in my first swing. Even if I got off the tee, I might be way left, way right, who knows? And I might stub a cup my second or third. So when I was envisioning getting around the course, I was envisioning my best level of execution, just so you all know that. But that being said, I've always said, Augusta National, you can get around that course no matter how bad a golfer you are, because it is generally pretty wide open. Now, it might take you 6 putts to get the ball in the hole once you get to the green, but you can get from tee to green one way or another. So it was just fascinating to actually see the course from a golfer's point of view and to really kind of take in the layout as opposed to jumping from hole to hole to hole to hole. One of the things that's interesting, everyone talks about the elevation, folks, and it is true. You cannot duplicate or replicate or really give a true sense of the elevation changes that are on the course at Augusta National Golf Club without actually being there. I mean, it is an unbelievably up and down, side hill lies. There's no flat lies, right? Very, very few. But to me, the thing that's interesting about Augusta National is the routing of the course. I wouldn't say that the holes are tightly confined, right? I would say that there were what's the word that I wrote down a word. They're kind of, what did I say? Something like, oh, you feel confined. You feel confined. They're not tight holes, but they kind of crisscross. I'll give you an example. One of the interesting places I find to watch golf during the Masters, if you go to the right-hand side of the green on the 7th hole, from there, you get about as close to any green on the right-hand side of the 7th green as any hole at Augusta National. I mean, you're just right on top of the golfers. You can almost read the putts. You're that close to the green. But to your right is the approach shot for the 17th hole. If you go on the other side of the 7th green, the left side, you can see the tee shot for the 3rd hole. The 8th hole is slightly to your left if you're on the right-hand side. And if you go around the corner, you can see the 18th tee shot. It's a great place for golf, but it kind of tells you, kind of as an example of how everything kind of crisscrosses. There's no straight linear 1 through 18, front 9, back 9. They all kind of meld together in a very, very fascinating way. And again, that's kind of what, in my mind, makes Augusta National feel confined. Not tight, but confined. I mean, you feel like it's a relatively small footprint, even though some of these holes are obviously very long. It is interesting. I was able to talk to a couple members while I was there. One of the members told me that it takes about 4.5 hours for them to get around the course on a regular day. Okay, I can get that. You figure most people who are members at Augusta National are pretty good golfers, so they can pretty much get around anywhere, especially if this is their home course. Home course in the sense of they may not play it 45 times a year. Maybe they play it 8 times a year because they live in another state. Who knows? But they can get around. But I did speak with one member who had a different point of view. This member told me, well, from the members' tees, obviously you have to acknowledge it's a shorter course from the member tees. He said it takes about 5 to 5.5 hours to get in a full round. Why? He told me the reason is because once you tee off at 1, by the time you get to the 3rd hole, which is kind of a tricky little hole, there's a backup on the 4th tee, which is the par 3. It's the first par 3. And he says from there, it continues to be a slog. He also made the note that the back nine plays a little quicker than the front because by the time the members get to the back nine, they are so worn out mentally and physically, they stop trying to quote unquote shoot a score. His words, not mine. They stop trying to quote unquote shoot a score and just start hitting the golf ball so they can get into the house, essentially, which I thought was a fascinating point of view. Not sure how accurate it is. It may just be a viewpoint held by this one particular member, but I thought it was interesting that he voiced that opinion when asked. So there is that. What else happened? I have to say, after walking the course, decided to follow Rory. I have to say, the crowds on Saturday seemed a little thinner than I'd seen at previous Masters. I'll give you an example. We followed Rory from his second hole through the tee shot on 6, right? And we were able to see essentially every approach. We were able to see most of his tee shots. It just wasn't that crowded. You had elbow room. There were plenty of people out there, but you didn't have to bob and weave, stand on your tippy toes. You could see the putting surface on all of those holes. By the way, speaking of seeing the putting surface, I did see Rory chip in for eagle on Saturday from the fringe on number 2. It was fascinating. But it's also a little different when you're on the course. We're going to talk about that in a moment. I was surprised, I have to say, at the amount of support that I heard patrons giving Rory throughout the entire Saturday round. So many people were talking about he could run away with it, he could do this. Oh my gosh, he might win it. I hope he wins it, so on and so forth. I personally was genuinely surprised that Rory had so much support on Saturday from the patrons on the ground. It was very, very impressive. As most of you know, I picked Rory to win this Masters. So I was rooting for him anyway, but I was surprised. He had an enormous level of support on Saturday. I didn't hear a single person rooting against Rory, which was, I thought it was interesting. What else happened? Food and drink. You know, everyone talks a lot about the Masters and how the prices for beverages and food are essentially from the 1950s. I mean, and a lot of that is largely true. I mean, you're paying $3 for a domestic beer, essentially. I think the sandwiches are all $1.50. I forget how much the peach ice cream sandwich is, but I think that's $3 as well. So it's fascinating because you'll see people, you know, a lot of people buy chairs. You buy the chairs there. Chairs are only $35. I mean, they cost almost the same amount as a master's hat, ball cap. Chairs are $35. You put your chair out at any hole you want. You put your business card in the back of the chair, and they essentially people leave your chair alone. They don't move it. They respect that it's yours. Sometimes people will sit in it until you show up. Then you tell them, "Hey, that's my chair," and they'll move. But it's fascinating because you'll see people buy Masters backpacks and cinch bags, and they'll just buy 8, 9 sandwiches, egg salad, pimento cheese, the barbecue sandwich, the ham and cheese, the chicken sandwich. They sell a breakfast sandwich. They stick them in the backpack, and they go sit at their hole and watch the golf. It is absolutely fascinating. Now, I do have to say, I had access to a cabin while we were there, so it definitely changes the viewing experience to an enormous degree because we would go out on the course not just to get some fresh air, but we would go out on the course to see some of these golfers play, whether it was Oberg or Rory or Xander Schauffele or Colin Morikawa. We would watch them for about an hour, hour and a half, whatever. Then we would just go back to the cabin, grab a drink there, grab a bite to eat, watch the rest on TV, go back out a little later. So it completely changes your viewing experience. I will be the first one to admit that. But one of the things that they do get incredibly right on television are the roars that you hear around Augusta National. And funny story, when you're on the grounds at Augusta National, you hear a roar. Now, there are some people who are tuned enough to know whether it's a birdie roar or whether it's an eagle roar or whether it's a par save roar. My ears aren't attuned to that degree, so I'll be the first one to admit. But one of the fascinating things is that when you watch the scoreboard, these scoreboards are manual, so they change them. And, they put up the new scores, so on and so forth. So you'll hear roars because there was a change on the scoreboard. But all that being said, one of the fascinating things is when you have access to one of the cabins or the clubhouse or wherever, and you hear the roars, but you're watching the Masters on television, literally because of the delay, you'll hear a roar, TV will cut to a hole, and you know what is going to happen because you heard the roar 3 seconds earlier. It's fascinating way to watch a golf tournament. Now, let's see. So that was essentially Saturday. I will give you a couple of merchandise tent suggestions, by the way. They have so much stuff there, from posters to calendars to head covers to wallets, coasters, beach bags, hats, shirts, t-shirts, hoodies. They have everything at Augusta National, except, which I was surprised about, because I never really looked in the past. They don't have a lot of dishes, like serving dishes, like like a bread plate or something you would serve charcuterie on or something like that. They don't have a lot of platters. I didn't see any for sale, which I thought was honestly a missed opportunity. I would have bought a few. But that being said, obviously buy it for friends, family, buy extra things, knickknacks, because you can give so many things away because the pricing is fairly good for most of the merchandise. I always like to bring back a few extra sets of divot tools, a few extra set of ball markers, because these things are like $15, $20. And, you can give them away to, again, friends, family, business associates. It's a nice thing to have, to be able to kind of give away during the course of the year. The one thing I wouldn't suggest you buying, and you're free to buy whatever you want, it's your money. I wouldn't suggest buying a Masters polo. Why? Cyrus, why do you say that? I'll tell you why. Because in my opinion, they're just overpriced. I mean, how many people do you know wear a Masters polo on the golf course? I mean, I think I've seen it maybe twice in the last 20 years. But look, anybody who buys a Masters polo is probably more likely to wear it to Whole Foods than they are to wearing it on the golf course. Although, if you have a Masters polo, you're probably going to wear it everywhere you can. You might sleep in it. Who knows? I personally prefer the Masters hoodies, the Masters pullovers or quarter zips. Those make perfect sense to me. Head covers, golf towels, things like that. Even the Masters t-shirt. I mean, the Masters make these great T-shirts. You can work out in them. It's great. Take them to the gym, take them to the beach, whatever. So I'm a fan of that. Anyway, let's get to Sunday. Sunday, showed up at Augusta National, I guess around same time, around 7:30 this time. Hit the merch tent by 8 o'clock. And for whatever reason, there were full-size gnomes on display. I mean, the merch tent had them coming out of their ears. It was unbelievable. It was almost like, okay, this is Sunday. Let's clear the lot. It was very, very strange. Again, Saturday, I was in the merch tent around the same time. No full-size gnomes, even though you saw people walking around with the full-size gnomes outside of the merch tent because they had bought them. I show up on Sunday, gnomes everywhere, full-size gnomes. So, of course, I bought one. And I'll show that to you guys. I'll show you both next week. You can take a look and see what you think. But I will say this. By the time I left the merch tent, my man, Skip, he stopped by probably about 45 minutes after I left. And all the full-size gnomes were gone. So it just goes to show. Maybe they had just as many on Saturday, but they just fly out the door. Who knows? Anyway, so there was that. Hit that. Sunday, I decided to walk the back nine, actually, because I wanted to get a sense. Augusta National in the first Masters literally was played. They reversed the nines. I think the first Masters. That was the original routing. So you would tee off on 10, make your way around, and play through 9. 9 was 18 back then, I think in 1934. 1935, I think the second year or the third year, they changed it to the routing that we have today, which is the first hole is now the first hole, and you go through 18. So I wanted to get a sense of what it would be like to play the course essentially backwards, like I'm at a live event. So, and it was interesting, if you get up on 10, you got that back nine, you're going to get off to a very good start or a very poor start and then struggle home. So I think the present day routing probably makes the most sense. What else? It was more crowded on Sunday. I can definitely tell you that. The only time we saw Rory and Bryson, we saw their approach shots on 10. We saw that live, and we watched them putt out. But you literally, from 1, 2, 3, you literally couldn't get close enough to see the putting surface depending on where you stood. And if you stood far enough back, you could see it, but again, you were so far back, which brings me to another merch tent item purchase, which I didn't think about at the time, but I thought about it after I saw how crowded it was on Sunday. Augusta National sells these Masters branded binoculars, and I know someone who bought a set. I looked through them. It's a very good set of binoculars. And that is really the way to go if you're going to be there for a Sunday round, because then you don't have to get close. You can still see what's happening live. And I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but it would have been a great, great, great purchase. I probably would have spent more time actually out on the course than in the cabin watching the action, simply because it would have been so much easier to see what was happening both on the tee, approach, and on the greens. So, little pro tip, if you ever find yourself at Augusta National, please do yourself a favor, buy some binoculars. I don't know how much they cost, but I'm sure they're reasonably priced. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess something like $85. That's what I would guess. But Don't hold me to that because I didn't look at the price. I didn't even buy the binoculars, so who knows? But I would guess they're probably around $85 if I had to guess. Okay, what else did I do? I watched the rest of the back nine, obviously, uh, at the cabin. Folks, I have to tell you, it was really hard to believe Rory found a way to win that tournament. I'm going to be absolutely honest. Um, it was strange because he had so many brilliant shots. Shots to get himself out of trouble, shots to actually press his advantage. I mean, both Saturday and Sunday on 15 were amazing. His shot on Sunday on 7 to get out of trouble and onto the green. He hit shot after shot. So remember, I said a few weeks ago I don't really remember any great shots that Rory has hit in his career. I'm sure he has hit them. I don't remember them. I'll remember some of the shots he hit at the 2025 Masters. That's for sure. But the poor shots, the poor decision making, the poor execution. Look, I don't kill Rory for that. He was trying to do something that he tried over a decade to accomplish. By definition, he's human. And I chalk that up to human foibles. He was trying the best he could to do something he'd never done before. And the fact that he actually found a way to get around that course over 4 rounds and a playoff and have the lead, lose the lead, play horribly, play great, all of that, and then still come out on top. Golf clap for Mr. McIlroy. It was a tremendous effort. I know some people have talked about this Masters being kind of the one of the top Masters of all time. I don't know. I'd really have to think about that. I really would. It was certainly one of the most compelling Masters, without question. And again, I was really surprised at the support that Rory received on Saturday. The reason I keep mentioning Saturday is because I was on the course several hours on Saturday. On Sunday, I heard a lot of people because I asked anecdotally, who do you got? You got Bryson, you got Rory, who do you got? And more people than I thought said Rory, which surprised me. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing. I just thought that Bryson would have received more support from the people I asked. But I will say this. It was kind of a strange Sunday for Bryson. He went into that round, I felt that he was going to be trouble with a capital T all day long. I mean, I thought Bryson was going to be a real problem for McIlroy. And especially after Rory stumbles on the first hole. Double bogeys ties, next hole 2, Bryson takes the lead, and that is it. It was very, very strange. I don't know if it was. Look, let's be honest. Bryson DeChambeau is 2-time major winner. He's won, what is it, 2 PGAs, I guess? So he has experience in the fire, so to speak. But I can't tell you how surprised I was that he didn't fire at some point later in the round. I mean, you can't get knocked down on the third hole of 18 and never come back. And that was one of the things that was most impressive about, to me, Rory's effort. The first round he gets knocked down. Plays well, but then, 2 double bogeys in the last 4 holes to show up at even. Friday, obviously, he plays a great round, gets himself back in contention. Saturday, as well as he played, Corey Connors played almost just as well with him. But then he ends up having DeChambeau in the final round, which when DeChambeau made that putt on 18 on Saturday, I really thought, again, he's going to be trouble all day on Sunday. And it turns out he wasn't much of a factor. It was strange. Um, all the credit again to Justin Rose, who did a fantastic, fantastic job. Talk about competing. He was great. Now, I will say this. Rory's kind of up and down play. So many people have said this, so I'm not the first, but I will agree with what so many others have said. I mean, it really shows you that if you get knocked down and continue to get back up, you give yourself a chance in life, no matter what it is, no matter what venue you're at, no matter what you are pursuing goal wise, just keep getting up. And let's remember, Roy has had some devastating losses. Very few more devastating than last year's U.S. Open. I guess Bryson won the U.S. Open. Was that the U.S. Open or the PGA at Pinehurst? Whatever it was, I think it's the U.S. Open. The Cam Smith loss at St. Andrews, the Open Championship, where Roy just couldn't get anything to drop. I mean, the Patrick Reed 2018 at the Masters. Roy has just had gut punch after gut punch after gut punch, and he was as up and down as any golfer who could win a tournament could be this entire past week. And it speaks to his stick-to-itiveness. And all kudos to him. I love the fact that when they asked Roy after the tournament, how was it relief? Was it joy? What overcame you on the 18th green? And he said it was all relief. He said joy came later, but he said on 18, it was all relief. And I completely believe that. So kudos to Roy. Look, not everyone is Tiger Woods. Not everyone is Jack Nicklaus, right? Sometimes when you want something so badly and you have failed to achieve it in prior attempts, it can be really hard to get across the finish line. And this past Masters was really hard for Rory to get across the finish line. But the fact is, he did. And that's really all that matters at the end of the day. So kudos to Rory McIlroy. I will tell you this. One of the food items that I tried when I was there, and I tried this on Sunday, there's a new food item at the Masters, and it was called the tomato pie. What is the tomato pie? Well, tomato pie is essentially an empanada-like turnover that is filled with essentially crushed tomatoes, a cheese of some kind, and some kind of onion, whether it's leeks or onion or green onion or spring onion. What did I think of it? Folks, it was the best Totino's pizza roll I've ever had in my life. It's pretty good. It comes in a box like a McDonald's apple pie, but it's a half moon shape. And I have to say, the tomato pie was actually pretty good. Would I have it again? Yes, I would. I don't know if I'd have more than one, per day, but it was actually pretty good. Tomato pie, thumbs up for innovation. Great job, Augusta National. What else? Oh, here's another thing. The weather was great. We all know that. But two things that you notice when you go to a golf tournament like the Masters. Number one, you notice that there are very, 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 very few people in a bad mood. Everyone is so happy to be there that, everyone's on cloud nine. You can't say a cross word to anyone, and no one's going to say a cross word to you. Why? Because you're fortunate enough to be at the tournament, and for many people, it's a lifelong dream. It is an awesome atmosphere. But I will say this. One of the strangest things that I've ever seen, and this has happened every single time I've been to the tournament, you see more Masters merchandise hats, polos, bags, backpacks, chairs, all of it. You see more of that on the course than you actually see in the merchandise tent. It is amazing. Folks, people get their master's gear. I had a guy tell me, he's like, yeah, oh yeah, I packed light. I packed a very, very, very empty suitcase for my trip down here because I knew I was going to buy a ton of merchandise and going to wear everything that I buy. It was very strange, not in a negative way. It's just odd. You don't go to the U.S. Open uh, at any venue and see a ton of U.S. Open gear worn by the people in attendance. Yeah, you don't see. I've never been to a PGA or an Open Championship. But you don't see it there, I would assume. You don't see it at the tennis U.S. Open, which I have been to. Where you see a ton of U.S. Open hats, a T-shirt here and there, but the crowd is not bathed in Forest Hills, USTA, U.S. Open gear predominantly. It's very, very, very noticeable. But look, again, kudos to anyone who could afford to be there. Kudos to anyone who was lucky enough to be there. You will have a great time. It is completely worth attending whenever you get the chance. So if you do ever get the chance, please go. You will not be disappointed. Let's talk a little bit about the ramifications of Rory's win. Now, Rory's win was not only the completion of a career Grand Slam for him, but it is my belief that Rory's win will be the ushering in of a new golden era in golf. That golden era may only last 3 years. It may only last 5 years. But as I said a couple of weeks ago, if Rory ever find a way to win this thing, you are going to see a rivalry develop that should, no guarantee, but it should rank up there with any of the rivalries we've seen in the past. Jack and Arnie, Tiger and Phil. I mean, you think about it. I mean, who knows? Maybe Magic and Larry Bird. Who knows? You think about it. Scotty Scheffler, I'm sure, was really, really annoyed that he didn't get closer to the lead on Sunday. Scotty's a tremendous golfer, and I believe he is a fantastic competitor. So I think, considering the venues for the next 3 majors, Quail Hollow, which I believe is going to be the venue for the PGA, which comes up next. Rory's won at Quail Hollow 4 times. How could you not pick him as a potential favorite to go 2 for 2 in the first 2 majors of the year? Doesn't mean he will, but he has to be the favorite right now. I think Scotty's going to want to get in there and spoil the party and remind people who Scotty Scheffler is. Royal Port Rush, or whatever the course is for the Open. That's the 4th major this year. That is obviously Rory's hometown. Shane Lowry won the Open the last time it was there. Rory is probably going to be a favorite in that tournament as well, depending on what happens in the U.S. Open and the PGA. U.S. Open is at Oakmont this year, which Rory historically has not played great, but it's probably the kind of course where both Scheffler and Rory will be able to get around this year. Folks, if you think Scotty Scheffler is going to take Rory McIlroy winning the Masters lying down, you got another thing coming. Scotty does not want to be the number 2, the number 3 golfer in the world. He is very comfortable being the number 1 golfer in the world. And if you think he's going to give that up without a fight, I think you're crazy. Folks, this rivalry, I believe, is going to last 3 to 5 years, and it is going to be tremendous. Now, let me tamp down expectations on my part to a degree. And I will say that by doing this. I understand just because someone wins a major, it doesn't always unlock that golfer to win multiple majors, right? Ask Sergio Garcia, right? Ask Adam Scott. I honestly believed when Adam Scott won the Masters a few years ago, uh, I thought that he probably would win 3 or 4 majors after he won that Masters. He's still on one. Same thing for Justin Rose. Justin has been close in a number of different times, but he still has only the one major, U.S. Open at Marion. So just because you win, just because you break through, just because you accomplish a goal, finishing the career Grand Slam, doesn't mean you're going to go on a run necessarily. But I do believe Rory will win more majors. And I believe the number that I would set for Rory McIlroy, he's at 5 now. The number I set between now and the end of his career is 8. Do you take the over or do you take the under? I personally am going to take the over. I think Rory wants to get to double digits in majors. And if he does that, he is going to try to elbow away his in to the top 5, certainly the top 10 of all time. And let me tell you something. If Rory McIlroy finds a way to win double-digit majors, he will be in the top 10 of all golfers of all time. Now, let's say he only wins 8. That's the same number Watson has. But Rory has the career Grand Slam. He still might be top 10 all time. Only time will tell. But I think golf fans around the world are about to be treated to a tremendous era of golf. And Xander Schauffele, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, hey, all you guys, even my man Ludwig Oberg, all you guys are on notice. Scotty and Rory are about to go man to man, head to head. And if you don't want to get left out, you better tighten up because these guys do not want to leave anything for anybody else. It is going to be tremendous the next 3 to 5 years. Trust me. Okay. We've gotten to the point in the show where I get to ask you my favorite question. What are you drinking tonight? Well, I can tell you what I'm drinking. And the answer is I am drinking, you can tell by the red, it gives it away, Maker's Mark Cask Strength Bourbon Whiskey. Folks, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this product, and then I'm going to tell you what I think of it. It is, of course, distilled, aged, and bottled by the Maker's Mark Distillery in Loretta, Kentucky. The bottle that I have, which is here, for those of you watching on YouTube, for those of you listening on Spotify or Apple, I can tell you that the bottle I have is batch number 23-06. And I assume that means that it was bottled in June of 2023, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, the batch number is 23-06. It is 54.75% ABV, which makes it 109.5 proof. And I bought the bottle for $45. Okay, I got to tell you folks, this has a nice level of spice. It's smooth, it's drinkable, has a little bit more kick than you would suspect. Even at 109, almost 110 proof, as most of you know, I drink higher proof whiskeys and bourbons all the time. But for some reason, this Maker's Mark Cask Strength has a little bit more kick than I would suspect. I got to tell you, It's warm. It seems like it would be a great cigar bourbon, which I intend to try out this weekend. We're supposed to have some nice weather out here in the Northeast, and I definitely want to try it either Saturday or Sunday. Looking forward to that. I give it a full thumbs up. I got to tell you, according to the Maker's Mark website, they describe the aroma as big oak, vanilla, and caramel. They describe the taste as robust, warm texture with notes of caramel, vanilla, and spice. They say the finish is a long finish on the front of the tongue, harmonious with no harsh bitterness. I could not agree more with all of those assessments. Now, the proof ranges depending on the year and the batch. Proof ranges between 108 proof to 114 proof. The mash bill, of course, is 70% corn, 60% red winter wheat, and 14% malted barley. It's believed to be aged around 6 years. Folks, I believe this Maker's Mark cask strength bourbon whiskey it's a no-brainer. And it's completely different from regular Maker's Mark, which is a fine product. But this cask strength, you should have it in your bar. It's I feel like we've had a couple of I don't want to say duds, but some non-winners over the last few weeks. This is a winner. Maker's Mark cask strength. Go buy it. And with that, that is our show for tonight, folks. As always, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for listening. We are here for you. Don't forget to tell your friends, your enemies, tell anyone with ears how much you enjoy and beloved the Stomp the Tee podcast, because we do this for you and we're happy to do it. So, I'm your host, Cyrus Farmer. This is the Stomp the Tee podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And as always, we will see you on the first tee. To Rory, congratulations.